young pastor. He starts out right out of seminary. Too young. Anyway, young pastor right out of seminary. First sermon in the pulpit was amazing, outstanding. Gets up there, preaches. Everyone loved it. They could not wait to return the following week. Call went out to the bishop, said, boy, this pastor's a keeper. A few murmurs began to occur the following week when he preached the exact same sermon. Third week, boy, the grumblings really started when the pastor got up and preached the exact same sermon. A call went to the chair of the pastor parish relations committee. We need a meeting. A message was left with the district superintendent. And then the PPR meeting got quite lively, as you might imagine, when the pastor, for the fourth week in a row, preached the exact same sermon. People were saying, what's going on here? What are we paying this guy for? Do you think this congregation is full of dummies? The pastor sat and calmly listened to all of these concerns. He then looked at all the committee members, assured them by saying, I know what I'm doing. When you start living out this sermon, I'll go on to my next one. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Advent Conspiracy, didn't we do this last year? Same lesson, same message, same emphasis. Some of you are probably thinking, heck, I can just go home. I'll just watch the sermons online from last year and get everything I need. Well, I can tell you this is a different sermon. Same emphasis, though. Similar lesson, same focus on worship fully. But I can also tell you that we're doing Advent Conspiracy again because this is a big deal. We should not think of this as just a fad or a repeat sermon series or something to make the church relevant again. Advent Conspiracy is a completely different way of practicing the season of Christmas. It is different, but also quite old school. Now I realize that as someone who preaches, that words have power. And by saying old school doesn't always have a positive connotation. So instead of using old school, we're actually going to say that Advent is vintage. Advent Conspiracy is going vintage this year. Dr. Rob Boyd tells about a man whose name was Charlie Stink. Now, people constantly picked on Charlie Stink because of his name. His friends encouraged Charlie Stink to go and go to the legal requirements and have his name legally changed, just so it would be better for him. So finally, he convinces himself the next day. He goes to the court. He goes through all the legal ramifications. The next day, his friends come up to Charlie Stink. They said, okay, what did you change your name to? And Charlie Stink replied, I changed my name to George Stink, but for the life of me, I can't see the difference it'll make. Advent Conspiracy is all about not missing the point. Because people often miss the point of Christmas and Advent. For some, it's a season to have parties and exchange gifts. For others, it's a time to eat, drink, and be merry. For merchants, it's a time to salvage maybe a lackluster year of retail sales. For consumers, it's a time of dread, crowded stores, and an ever-crowded calendar. All of this misses the point of Advent and Christmas. Because Advent and Christmas is about worshiping fully. Little Joey one time asked his mom at Christmas time, Mom, why do people put lights on their houses? Well, they're celebrating Jesus' birthday, came the reply. When is Jesus' birthday, little Joey asked. Well, he was born on Christmas, his mother replied. Jesus was born on Christmas, he exclaimed. What a coincidence! And there it is. Our hearts are formed by what we worship. Excitement, anticipation, and hope. Each of these emotions swells around the object of our dearest affection. We spend time and energy on what matters most. I mean, think about it. Black Friday for the church is the day that Jesus died, but Black Friday for our culture is a time of deals and shopping and getting up at 3 a.m., or you could even go to Walmart at 6 on Thanksgiving and just wait in line. What do we spend our time and energy on this holiday season? It's not on Christ. Not on the story of Christ. No wonder that we come to church and are disconnected from the story, because deep down inside we are so far from seeing the manger scene that we put up there. Don't believe me? Listen to this quote. Last year, 40% of Americans, as they went into the year 2016, their biggest worry was credit card debt. 40%. Only 15% had cash to spend on holidays. And a Consumer Reports poll found 13.6 million Americans are still saddled with last year's holiday debt. 13.6 million. This is why Advent is going vintage this year. This is why Advent Conspiracy needs to be so important for you, for me, for the church, and for the world. Because when we come to worship, it should be the easiest thing to do to just sit and think of Jesus. But in our culture, it is the hardest. The invitation to join Advent Conspiracy moves us away from the demands of our culture and keeps us in the story of Jesus, keeps us in the story of his birth, and keeps us in the story of Christmas. Think of what would happen if we entered the story again with fresh, unique, and vintage ways. One father talked about his experience with Advent Conspiracy in this way. My family had been talking about the birth of Christ and what it meant that God gave himself to be with us. I could see my children processing, but I didn't know if it was really connecting. But during an Advent worship service, my son brought his allowance savings without telling me. As our sanctuary filled with voices celebrating the birth of Christ, we went forward to the communion table. Looking down at my son, I saw him put something like $40 into the offering for kids around the world. When I asked him about it later, he said he wanted to give like God had given to us. You know, each year brings another opportunity to worship Jesus. Each year, we tell ourselves, this is going to be different this year. Each year, we talk about the invitation. Now we come to our scripture. Now, Matt, bear with me here. I need to do something here real quick before you read here. So just give me a second here. Let's see here. Good here. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait. Something's missing. There's a glass up there. If you could get that for me. Oh, yes. Oh, thank you, Mary. All right. Okay.
Would you like a cookie?
Kind of cookies back there. No, just go ahead and read the scripture. You can go right ahead, man. All right, I think I'm ready. Oh, yeah. You bet. Okay. Yeah.
No one knows, however, when that day and hour will come. Neither the angels in heaven, nor the Son, nor the Father alone knows. The coming of the Son of Man will be like what happened in the time of Noah. In the days before the flood, people ate and drank. Men and women married up to the very day Noah went onto the boat. Yet they did not realize what was happening until the flood came and swept them all away. This is how it will be when the Son of Man comes. At that time, 2 men will be working in a field. One will be taken away, the other will be left behind. 2 women will be at a mill grinding meal. One will be taken away, the other will be left behind. Watch out then, because you do not know what day your Lord will come. If the owner of a house knew the time when the thief would come, you can be sure he would stay awake and not let the thief break into his house. So then you must always be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you are not expecting him.
Thank you. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, where's my fleece blanket? Where's my glass of milk? Where's my remote just go shopping wearing some fleece blankets or pajamas. Unless it's at Walmart late at night, I don't think we're accustomed to such comfort. Comfort kind of gets in the way. But when we think of the Christmas story, we tend to think of comfort. We're not accustomed to this apocalyptic message. My microphone on here. Testing 1, 2, testing. Testing 1, 2. There we go. There we go. We're not accustomed to this apocalyptic message. How is this passage supposed to be related to the Christmas story? I mean, it's hard to get into that Christmas spirit of sugar plums and snowflakes and the sound of the crackle of fire and eggnog in our glass and the glow of opening presents when reading about the end of the world. But when we think about the reality of Christmas, it's anything but comfortable. Christmas is hectic. You've got parties and cards and shopping and crowds and school events and expectations and gift wrap. And just like our passage is a reminder of what we find uneasy and uncomfortable about this season. So let's make Christmas vintage this year. And for that, we have to go all the way back to Rome. And that's why this story is so uncomfortable. Because this is a dangerous story, told in dangerous times because a rebellion is afoot. Now, before our minds go to Rogue One, I want you to bear with me because this is a better story. Is my battery going out? I think. Testing 1, 2, testing. All right, so here's the deal. Jesus was born in the time of Caesars. And if you think about it, the empire of Rome ran from from England all the way to Egypt, included all of the Mediterranean. Now, in the days of Caesar, Rome was powerful. Resistance was stamped out immediately. And what they usually did is they saw you, if you were a traitor, you would go to trial. You might even go to trial. But the verdict was already determined before you went there. All that determined is the punishment. I think my battery is going bad.
Just like in Rome.
Pause here. Testing 1, 2, testing. There we go. All right. In the day of Caesars, Rome was powerful. Now, you might have a trial. If you were considered a traitor, you might have a trial if you were lucky. But guess what? When the trial came, the verdict was already determined by the time that you got there. And all that was left was the punishment phase. So as you might imagine, Rome was in control. They were in charge. Now, that is the macro. That is Rome. We're going to look at the micro. We've already heard about Caesar Augustus. Now, Caesar Augustus, he brought peace. And everyone was happy. And everyone was getting along. Now, we just had an election that divided our country. And some of you had some of those Thanksgiving meals where you're thinking to yourself, okay, did that family member vote for the person I hope they didn't vote for? And you're thinking to yourself, we like peace. We like it when everyone gets along. So as you might imagine, Caesar Augustus was a genius. He was able to get this huge and mighty empire to get along. It was a glorious age. It was a golden time. Now, something starts to creep into the religion of the day. Now, I want us to, as we get into the next part, I want you to do a little exercise. I want everyone to stand up. I want you to turn to your neighbor. So go ahead and stand up. I want you to turn to your neighbor, grab them by the shoulders, and I want you to say, we're going to learn some Latin.
We're going to learn some Latin. Okay.
All right, everyone have a seat. Have a seat. Okay. The state religion, go ahead and have a seat. The state religion was what was called the religio. So everyone say the religio.
Religion.
There you go. Well, that was the state cult. The religio had a lot of myths and a lot of history about the founding of Rome. But here's the interesting part about the religio. Not everyone had to believe in it. In fact, you didn't have to believe in it. You just had to participate in it. Because you don't mess around with tradition. You don't mess around with what works. The economy of Rome was built on this idea that everyone participated in the religio. It's what united the empire. It's what kept things going. It was non-negotiable. You had no choice. You had to participate in the state religion, the religio. Now, on your family level, you could do whatever you want. You had your favorite gods. You had your favorite cults. You had what was called the superstitio. So let everyone say, superstitio.
Superstition.
There you go. All right, Rome, as you might, was very tolerant about what you practiced, what you believed in your home, as long as you participated in the religio. Okay, got it? Something starts to creep into the religio about this time. You've heard of this guy, Julius Caesar. You've maybe heard about the play or heard about this guy. Well, Julius Caesar, when he ruled, he had himself declared divine. Now, I'm not quite sure how someone does that, but he was a popular leader. People started worshiping him. They called him God. Testing 1, 2, 10. Yep. And Julius didn't have a son. I've been watching this documentary about the Roman empires, and many of these Caesars, they didn't have sons. So what did they do is they adopted somebody that they would kind of train and would become Caesar for them. So Julius Caesar, he adopts a guy by the name of Augustus. And so Julius Caesar is considered a god, and when Julius Caesar dies, his son takes over. Now here's something that's kind of interesting. Augustus Caesar, as I said, he was a genius. He didn't care that people called him God. But he didn't mind. Now, Julius Caesar is a god, and Augustus is son of God, is his son. So what does that make Augustus? The son of God. And Augustus, he didn't care for, he didn't mind that. That was fine. He didn't mind being called the son of God. He actually would have coins stamped with this on it. Augustus, son of God. Now, as I said, Augustus was a genius. And one of the things that he found is that he didn't mind if people believed that the Caesar, hold on here, kind of twist it around. There we go. He didn't mind that the Caesars were considered God. It kind of made it easier to rule the empire. Now let's fast forward about 40 years. The emperors are calling themselves God. And it was coming into a collision course with this crucified Savior in a land called Israel that also called himself God. Got it? The collision course. Peter actually was put on trial for saying there was no other salvation except through Jesus. People were actually killed for saying things like this. Now, people were not killed because they were saying that Jesus was God. I mean, Rome didn't care. I mean, you could have all kinds of so-called gods. That was the superstitio. What got you in trouble was if you did not participate in the religio. And for these early Christ followers, they were not in. Because Caesar was not God. Francis Schaeffer once said, "Let us not forget why the Christians were killed. They were not killed because they worshiped Jesus. Nobody cared who worshipped whom so long as the worshiper did not disrupt the unity of the state, centered in the form of worship of Caesar. If you don't worship Caesar, you're not patriotic. You're not a good citizen. The Christians were killed because they were rebels. They worshiped Jesus as God, the infinite God, the personal God only. The Caesars would not tolerate this worshiping of the one God only. It was counted as treason." You see, Advent conspiracy, I want to spill the milk here. Advent conspiracy is not supposed to be comfortable. If you are a follower of Jesus, guess what? You come from a long line of rebels. It is your tradition. It is your heritage. When we make Christmas vintage again, we go back to this idea and understanding. A colleague of mine, right before he preaches, he always says a prayer. It goes like this: Dear Lord, this sermon of mine isn't much, but I've worked honestly on it, and it's the best that I can do, at least at the moment. I know that any good which comes from this sermon will be your doing and not mine. Please help me so to live that I may become an increasingly uncluttered channel of your grace. To that end, may I think your thoughts after you and speak your word. I love you and I love these people among whom I serve. That's that, God. Amen. Now here's a challenge for us. Let's go back and read this prayer, and everywhere that we hear the word, that we see the word sermon appears, let's put in the word life. So I've got it up here on the board. Let's go ahead and pray this together. Dear Lord, this life of mine isn't much, but I've worked honestly on it, and it's the best that I can do, at least at the moment. I know that any good which comes from this life will not be your doing and not mine. Please help me so to live that I may become an increasingly uncluttered channel of your grace. To that end, may I think your thoughts after you and speak your word. I love you and I love these people among whom I serve. That's that, God. Amen. I invite you, I personally invite you into Advent Conspiracy again. This is vintage Christmas. Now, some people won't understand, because I hate to tell you this, but we have a religio that's going on to this day. It is called consumerism. It is called getting into the Christmas spirit. It is called making sure that everything looks beautiful and nice, and you've got the Christmas tree up, and you're going to all the parties, and you've made all the obligations, you've done everything right for Christmas. That is the religio. Now, fortunately, you're not going to be killed for it. Fortunately, you're not going to be put on jail for it. But if you don't participate in it, people are going to look at you strange. Advent Conspiracy is saying, do it a little bit different. Advent Conspiracy is saying, okay, take your budget for Christmas, take away one gift, and actually provide it for clean water. One of the things that we're going to be hearing about is how we raised $1,400 last year for a clean water project in Africa. Help them build some wells. Because what did we do last year? We got into the Christmas spirit. We were able to see Christ. We were able to move away from what our culture says is the religion. Why did we make this commitment last year? Because we wanted to make Christmas different. It's all about entering the story of God that changes the world. It is all about the Christ child that changes lives. And it is all about the Advent story that changes everything. Let me conclude here with one final story. There's a story circulating around about a Christmas pageant. Now, the day the presentation finally arrived, and a young girl by the name of Jana was so excited about her part that her parents actually thought that she had one of the main characters. They thought that, but she never told them what she did. Now, the parents of the children in the pageant were all there, and one by one, the children took their places. Jana's parents could see the shepherds fidgeting in one corner of the stage, which was evidently intended to be a field. Mary and Joseph stood solemnly behind the manger. In the back, three young wise men waited patiently. But still little Jana sat quietly and confidently. Then the teacher began. A long time ago, Mary and Joseph had a baby, and they named him Jesus. And when Jesus was born, a bright star appeared over the stable. At that cue, Jana got up from her chair, picked up a large tinfoil star, walked behind Mary and Joseph, and held the star high up for everyone to see. When the teacher told about the shepherds coming to see the baby, 3 young shepherds came forward, and Jana jiggled the star up and down excitedly to show them where to come. When the wise men responded to their cue, she went forward a little to meet them and then to lead them the way. Her face was alight as the real star might have been. The play ended. They had the refreshments. On the way home, Jana said with great satisfaction, I had the main part. You did, her mom asked, wondering why she thought that. Yes, she said, because I showed everybody how to find Jesus. Friends, we enter Advent conspiracy again because we want to find Jesus. We enter the story to show everybody how to find Jesus. I invite you to be a rebel. And in that process, get away from this idea that Christmas is all about comfort, because we're going to worship fully. Amen. This time, I ask our ushers to wait upon us.